Hey guys, Paul Gold here, creator of Tennis Doubles Mastery, and a quick video for you today answering a very common question that I see on the court as well as inside the course, and this is all to do with being lobbed. Because as you know, most people would advocate that you need to try and gain the net position, get closer to the net to dominate the points and to boss the points. But a very common problem, and I've seen a lot of questions inside the course, especially from ladies playing matches and stuff like that, and a common problem definitely seems to be that they're being lobbed. So in an effort to improve their game and get into the net, they're running up against the problem where they're being lobbed. So I thought I'd just quickly take this question out the course and answer it for everyone, because I know it's a common problem everywhere. I see it all the time. So what I've done is I've got my very crude but funky tool, which is a virtual tennis court, and I thought I'd use that because if I use footage of normal players, then what can tend to happen is that people have a look at the points and they get involved with the players, etc. But this is purely tactics. This is nothing to do with the players or shot selection. That is a completely different issue to a certain extent. This is all about the tactics and what we're trying to gain. So let's just have a quick look and run some of this stuff forward. So here's the virtual tennis court, as you can see. So it's just a basic tennis court with 4 players in a one up, one back situation, which is how most people start. So the main issue here is that we're trying to move players forwards and engage the net, and the question came in from a player who was actively poaching better, being a bit closer to the net and actively moving so they could move across like this and poach. Now the problem is twofold, is that they can be lobbed in behind them. They felt that players were lobbing in behind them. But the second issue was we're encouraging players to come up and take the 2 up at the net position. So when you have the 2 up at the net position, they're saying that playing against the 1 up, 1 back pair, they're being lobbed. Yeah, so how can you overcome that? Well, very simply, this player here, instead of being too close to the net, yeah, which often leaves the opposition with no option really to lob, because if they're that close, they are going to poach a lot of balls. So one of the smart shots really is to lob. So that's really good thinking from your opposition. But the second point about when you're trying to get the 2 players up to the net is that you don't come in too close. So the point here is that you've got the player coming in, but the trick is not to come in quite as close as you perhaps are, or perhaps think you might be, when you're playing a pair that obviously like the lob. Just being in this position here, you're still in a great position to make a volley, yet you're in a great position to cover any lobs. Yeah, look, you can see here with just a couple of paces back, you're still covering most of the court, and it's going to have to be an unbelievable lob right onto the baseline to beat you. So you kind of need to be working out how good their lobs are, etc., and just manage that situation. You're still acting as a deterrent by coming in. You're still covering more of the court by doing this, and this is the basic tactic, and we'll look at how that works in a second. And you're also covering the lob. The main problem is that most players come in, they think, yes, I've been told to come in, and they just get the ball put up over their heads. Now, the second issue is more about where you play your shots, and this can help you heaps if you can just get this right, because most players have been told, and I see actually doing it all the time. And what they do is they play the ball deep. They're coming in and they play their volley, their first volley or their approach deep. Now, if you think about it, the only problem with that is that, again, it can encourage the lob. And you're coming in, you're playing a full shot, unless you clip the baseline and really put the other pair under pressure, or certainly the baseline player under pressure, because they're playing against the 1 up, 1 back pair, is that it does encourage the lob. Now what you can do, and what will make a really big difference, is on your approaches you try and play more of an angle. So you angle the ball out, if you can. Say this player here was coming in cross court. If you can just play the ball at more of an angle, and perhaps even a bit lower with a slice or a chip or something, you can see that that actually would present a real problem to lob. Yeah, the angles completely change, and lobbing is no longer an easy option off of a low ball that's moving out wide. Now, just to go back to something I said earlier, let's look at the validation of the 1 up, 1 back situation as opposed to the 2 up, because many players are feeling that, yeah, we're coming up, we're 2 up, yet we're getting beaten by the one up, one back. Basically, the geometry of it is that you cover more of the court. So you can see here with the one up, one back situation, the kind of typical club setup, you have lots of spaces here, lots of spaces to exploit. So this one up, one back doesn't really cover enough of the court when facing a two up, because the view here is obviously from the two up. And if we move over now to look at the, this is almost like the two up, with one player just hanging back. I just kept that they're on their way in here. You can see that there's a lot less room to cover. Obviously the middle is covered by both players as long as they've got it, the communication going, and they know the rules for what player takes which ball, which obviously we've covered in the course. But you can see that they've got most of the court covered. It's only the very extreme angles and right down the outside lines that are exposed, as opposed to the one up, one back, which has a lot more room to hit into, especially from this position here in the red where you've got the two up. So hopefully that made some sense for you, and you've got something to go and work on, and you're not going to get bitten by the dreaded lobbers now. Any more questions, just drop us a line, and don't forget, for those of you seeing the video, all this stuff and all the tactics, etc., and basic rules of winning doubles is all inside the Tennis Doubles Mastery course, so feel free to check that out at some point.